Okay, welcome to class. So FYI, I'll put this is what I took notes for. So I am coming from a class in Root Hall. I may be a few minutes late. Okay, so I'll come, even if I'm 2 minutes late. You can all have to leave. All right, so last time we talked about stuff. You had some assignments to do. First one was just logging in, making sure your name is right on the system, and putting this myname.txt. So if you have a 0 in Blackboard for that, then you did something wrong. You can check that. If somebody reminds me tonight, I'll put some grades in again for people that have a 0 in there. That if you fix something, come on in. If you fix something on that, and if I remember, if somebody reminds me around 8 o'clock, I'll go ahead and check again. So what you needed, all of that I'm checking is, let's see. So that is the information from whether you actually put your name in or not. This is a list. When you do the when you log in and put your name in, it shows up there. If you forgot to do that, the command is chfn to change your finger information. So I already have my information in there. So if your name doesn't show up here, and it should be your name, so like this is a name, that's good. Are they all names? Yeah, they all look, the ones that are there look fine. But so for example, if somebody has, whoever has 60112, your name's not in there. Okay, and the other thing that I'm looking for is the myname.txt, if it's in the wrong directory, if it's capitalized wrong, if it doesn't have your Sycamore ID inside of it, then it's wrong. So fix that. Fix it before 8 p.m. and if I remember, I'll update the grades. That way you can check, and if you still have a 0 after I do that, then you still did something wrong. All right. Then homework 1 was copying this hello.html file. I also put in, for people that already copied it, I put that in as well. Anybody have any problems still with homework 1? Yeah?
I tried using VI, but over there if I log in, it comes as simple text. It doesn't come as HTML source code. So how to do that? Like Emacs, it was pretty easy. We can do it through HTML tags and all. We can see it.
Yeah, you wanted to like show the colors. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's a normal like file. If I open it through VI, only this is awesome. That is what goes. It would come out. It won't show it as HTML tag.
So if you do VI, then this is what you see?
Yeah.
I see. So it's showing the web. I don't know. I don't use VI. Anybody? What are you supposed to do? I guess VIM defaults to text. Use VIM. Or there's some flag that you can give. I don't know what it is because I don't use VI. Anybody know? Yeah. You can look up what flag to use or use something else.
No, it's like I created one more HTML file with all the tags. Then again, when I saved it and when I went inside,
yeah, that's what I just showed you. Look.
But then again, this is also
like this.
Again printed.
You see this?
Yeah, that is what was written. So I can't edit.
Right. So I'm saying, figure out how to do it with VI or use a different editor. I don't use VI, so I don't know. Yeah. If you use VIM, it has the same kind of commands as VI, but it shows up fine. All right, other questions on homework 1? If you want to ask me after, that's fine. We'll have 10 minutes in between classes. Always ask your neighbor first, because your neighbor will answer the question before I can, right? Because there's one of me, and how many of you are there? Something like 50 or whatever. All right. So let's just move on. I'll offer this advice: preliminary grades. If I remember, I update around 8 p.m. Always ask a friend to look at your stuff first. If you have a friend. If you're here in class, it's easy because you just ask the person next to you. Oh, some people had their 991 numbers in their hello.html. Take that out. Don't put that there. Because it's used as an ID number, and you don't really want people to know your ID number. I don't think it really matters, but just to be on the safe side. Okay. Any other questions on that stuff? Oh, homework 1, when should it be due? 2/3 of you are done with it already. Let's say tomorrow midnight, so then if you have a problem, you could still ask somebody tomorrow. So let's say due date Wednesday, August 26 by 11:59 p.m. And late due date, no. All right, just get it done. There's no reason to not get it done. All right, so then we want to go back and did anybody look at the slides from the UW course? A few people are sort of indicating yes. So let's take a look at those. They're good, and then do some examples. So here you go to lectures, and let's just review what was in there, because they're good, so there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. All right, let's just assume also that unless I tell you otherwise, everything that's in these slides you're supposed to know eventually, right, for tests or something like that. Okay, so we talked about the internet. There's a better picture coming up, and we talked about servers and clients. So this is the client, the web browsers, and this is the server. So what does it actually look like? I think they have a picture coming up here. Come on. Right, so this is a picture of what's actually happening. And so over here, you have a web browser, which is the application. So Chrome. I'm in Safari here. So Safari says, I want to get a web page. And what does it actually do? It tells the operating system, send this request to cs.washington.edu. So that's over here. The application says, operating system, send this request. And the operating system, this is the operating system right here. It's called, this is the rules for communication. So you should at least remember that TCP, UDP, IP, those are transport protocols. So that's the rules for sending information over the internet. You don't have to really know how that works for this class, but you should at least remember that that's the rules for the internet, for sending messages. So Safari on my computer is here, the application. It says operating system, send these messages, and then the operating system takes care of the rules. How do you actually package up that message? What's the message that Safari wants to send to Washington? Anybody know?
Request for a file in this case.
Request for a file. I want to get this file. So there's, give me the file. That's what it wants to say. And that is, well, here. The rules for how to do that is this HTTP. HTTP stands for, okay, so Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that's just, it's going to say something like, so here's I'm in Safari, and it says get and something, and whatever the name of the file is, file.pdf or whatever. And maybe there's some other options here in this request. So this is the HTTP request, and that needs to go by TCP and IP over the internet to Washington, University of Washington servers. This is me over here, us at ISU. So this is the workflow. This is how things actually happen. You type enter in Safari, and it issues this GET request by HTTP, which goes into the operating system. The operating system converts it into TCP information, Transferred Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. And that goes by the internet through routers and switches and whatever, and eventually gets to Washington. And what happens at Washington? It gets reversed. So it's the reverse process. So the network card gets it. The network card gets, that's this link layer here. So the network card, link layer and physical layer, they're actually getting zeros and ones, right? Raw electrical signals. So it's getting electrical signals, and the operating system converts that into the TCP IP data, whatever the rules are for that. And then the application, which will be like Apache, the web server, converts that into this HTTP information. Computer's not plugged in, so I have to press it every 2 minutes or something. Okay, so even though this is not a networking class, you want to have this picture in your mind that there's these different layers, and so when people ask you about them, application layer is Safari or Apache, a web server or a web client. Your transport and network layers, this is the operating system converting things, and routers are dealing with this kind of information. And then you have the physical whatever. That's only the routers and the network cards. So this whole process has to happen. And so the request gets over to Apache. Apache says you want this file, and then what does Apache do? Sends the file back. So it's going to go back the other way. It's going to make an HTTP file, some kind of HTTP file that's going to go back through TCP IP rules, whatever the rules are of TCP IP, that goes through the internet and back up the other way to my computer. My computer gets some TCP IP information, converts that back to HTTP information for the web browser, and then the web browser understands that. And inside of that is whatever the file is. Here it's a PDF. So things you want to remember is these acronyms. Just basically one sentence about them. All right, so this is like, this beginning part of these slides here is like your, all you need, so the basics of networking. We're not actually going to do any troubleshooting with networking, but you're supposed to know. Okay, so what do we actually type up here is this, right? Okay, so what we type up here is something that's easy for us to understand. What are computers like? Numbers. Computers like numbers, right? So this is talking about DNS stands for what? Domain name server. Okay, so domain name server converts something that we understand into a number. And the number is like the postal address. So postal addresses, you have your city, state, country, state, city, street, number, apartment, right? It gets smaller and smaller. So here in the IP addresses, it sort of works in a similar fashion, that there's some part of this initially that's like the organization. So University of Washington probably has all IP addresses that start like this, 128.208. And then, so when a packet needs to go to Washington, when it needs to go here, first it needs to go to Washington. That's like sending it to a particular state. And then once it gets there, Washington will figure out the rest of it. So the mail comes to Indiana, and then the post office in Indiana knows where the cities are, or something like that. Okay, so the DNS system is the system that converts between human readable stuff to stuff that the routers understand. So the actual data flow, there's an additional step here on this last page. If I type this address, before any of the transfer can happen, first my computer needs to figure out the IP address of this computer. So that happens first. And that's a separate picture from this one. So this would be step 2. It would be step 1 where my computer asks Indiana State, hey, Indiana State servers, what's the IP address for this? And if ISU already knows, that's fine. If ISU doesn't know, then ISU sort of goes up the line to wherever we get our internet from. And eventually we get an IP address so that this GET request goes to 128. Whatever it was. This TCP IP, it needs to have an IP address. So the first process is you get the IP address using the DNS system. And once you have the IP address, the rest of your communication just goes straight to there. Okay, we're not actually going to be doing anything with this stuff. For websites, what do you need to know about DNS for running your own websites?
IP address.
So if you buy a, let's see, let's say that you buy a, a hosting account from iPage. Let's see. Let's. Okay, so this is the website for this. We'll use them as an example. This is my kid's school. That's my kid, one of them. All right, so what, this is not, the content for this is not coming from St. Patrick. It's coming from iPage. That's the way you do these things. How many people have like websites that you host somewhere, or like you have uncles or aunts or somebody, their business? I don't know, small businesses, you host your website not at the company, you pay somebody else to do it. So then you need to go into somewhere, into domain, somewhere you're going to configure your DNS information. So this should come up, stpat.org. So DNS. Tell me about it. This is information here. I don't know. So I don't remember why these were set up this way, but so when somebody goes to stpat.org, the DNS is set up to do something. Let's just. So who is, you can run and it'll say information about who owns this domain. You pay somebody to own the domain, and I'm the contact for that, and the name server is this. So if somebody goes to stpat.org and they need to figure out the IP address, it goes to this server. So that server, domain name servers convert user-readable stpat.org into some IP address. And this one here is the one that's in charge of converting stpat.org into some IP address. And then that server there is configured on iPage like this or something. So that's all you need to know, really, for doing websites is what do? You have a hosting account, maybe with somebody, and then somewhere there's configuring the DNS entry. So you buy a DNS entry from somewhere. I don't think I remember. If you look at this who is, it says somewhere here Network Solutions. So Network Solutions is one of the companies that sells domain names, the actual name. So Network Solutions, I have some login to Network Solutions that I can go and change the name server to this. I have who owns the domain name, Network Solutions is who I bought it from. Where is the file actually coming from? iPage. So if you're going to run a website, you need to buy a domain name from someone like Network Solutions. And then you also need to host it somewhere. You can host it from your own home. And then for the name server, you would put, it depends. You might put your own IP address or you might put your ISP. But so the most common way for small businesses is you have your network solutions and then you have who you're actually hosting it with. You can host it with the network solutions, but they're just more expensive. So you find someone cheap to hold the actual files, and you could potentially buy the DNS entry from them as well, or it could be different. All right, let's see. Who runs the internet? ICANN are the people that are in charge of domain names. So if you want to own isuisawesome.com or something, they're in charge of who owns that. So you pay them ultimately. You pay somebody that is run through them. Network Solutions is one of the providers that works with them. All right, and then the IETF and the W3C, they're in charge of making the standards for all this stuff. So we have the TCP protocol, the IP protocol, the HTTP protocol, and then we have somewhere up here, you have HTML and stuff like that. So those are the two groups that are in charge of specifying what the rules are. History, who cares? We're going to do all this stuff. We gave an overview here. Things that run on the client in the web browser. So web browser is in charge of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and XML. So that runs in your browser. Your browser has to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and XML. On your server, on the back end, which we'll do later, it'll run PHP and SQL. Okay, we'll get to all those. So that's just... And then we get into, finally, some HTML. Let's take a pause, and if you want to say anything about this stuff, talk to your neighbor first about something. Ready? Go.